Today, we're going to tag team the teardown. So I have Barron Ernst, who currently leads product at Figure. He was also my manager at Intuit. He's done product at Snapchat and Booking, and most importantly, has experience running a streaming company. And because of that, we're going to focus on Max. We're going to discuss pricing, conversion, choice architecture, and retention. Here we go.
Excited.
Let's do this. Okay, we are starting with the conversion screen. So any observations on their positioning or their pricing on this screen, Barron?
What I think is interesting is so this is for people who are coming directly to max.com. And the thing that they do that's not totally surprising, but I think makes a lot of sense is they're saying, hey, if you just want Max, you can get it for $10 a month, essentially $9.99. But if you want this bundle where you get these three services together, it's only $7 extra. So it's less than double the price to get three for the price of one. And so clearly they would love to drive you toward this. But for people who are just like, I just want to watch a show I heard about on Max, or I just want to explore Max, they're also giving you that alternative as well, which I think is good. The other big thing you'll notice is they are trying to get you to see all the different possible shows in the background, hoping you find something that's going to pique your interest to get you to advance and move to the next screen is where they're trying to push you.
I wish that was a little bit stronger, where they're basically giving me very tangible, popular shows to entice me. What does Disney Plus offer? What does Hulu offer? What does Max offer? A little bit more concrete and specific, but I think they're in the background trying to get you excited.
Yeah, they're doing it in the background. And then your point is accurate. They do show more content the more you scroll down. I would say the interesting thing that we both noticed as we were looking through this is, so as you scroll, you do see this one CTA to get the bundle, and then you see all this additional content that is available on Max. But as you keep going, the interesting thing is none of this actually becomes clickable. And you don't even actually have a CTA down here, which I was actually surprised by. I would have assumed that somewhere in this lower area where they're trying to sell you based on content, they would have made it easy to subscribe and move forward. But they're actually wanting you to come back here and then make your choice between the bundle and Max specifically.
Yeah, I bet there's somebody at Max thinking about conversion, and I think the TLDR for them is add buttons, more buttons.
Yeah, I mean, or at least test it. Yeah. And if they did, then cool, then they know better than I do. But to me, an obvious A/B test would be just what are the buttons? Where should they be placed? How should you be thinking about this content? And to your point, most of the advertising lower on the page is very Max specific, and maybe if they want to push the bundle more, they could also add more of the content from the other players as well.
Totally. I'm also surprised they don't really have a discount here. Typically people are like, look, you can get the bundle for a limited amount of time, cross something off. Because right now, if people are coming to this page, they're likely looking for Max. Do we want to go to the page if you're searching and you really want to watch a show?
Yeah. I mean, one thing I was going to comment on your point just there is, the other trend we've seen a lot is, if you go back 5-6 years, almost all of these sites had a 1 week or a 1 month free trial. I think they're now basically have decided, hey, people know us well enough that we're moving away from that approach, which I think is pretty interesting. So yeah, just, The Penguin is a show that is currently popular on Max. It's one of their top pieces of content. If you search for it, not surprisingly, they are trying to own the SEO for it. They're in the 3rd spot. But it does deliver a bit of a different experience relative to the just come to max.com page. So if you come here, actually, this is a pretty interesting thing. They say plans start at $9.99. However, you click sign up now, they're going to push you pretty hard.
Yeah, like where's the $9.99?
Exactly. It's a pretty strange thing that's happening. My assumption here is if people are that interested in a show, they probably have some data that tells them push the full bundle to these people versus pushing just max.com. So it's interesting. You don't even see really on this page the ability to just subscribe for Max. Maybe I'm in a test that they're not showing it to me at all. But the only options I have are bundle. And notice that all of that content that used to be down here to sell me on the shows is gone. They're like, no, put this person into what I call the very tight happy path flow to get them to move forward.
Yeah. And basically, if you click on this page, you were defaulted, I think, into the 16.99, and then you would just go and click continue, and probably, just look at that default that they've said 16.99 is your thing. You've continued, you haven't even
Yeah,
saw the 9.99 at this point. So,
exactly. I think they may have even defaulted me to 29.99 because
oh, interesting.
I think it's not even that. I don't even think I
Bold.
clicked because it's even pretty bold. The other thing that I think is strange is
Hmm.
they must have tested this. I don't know why this box exists, to be super transparent, because I can't do anything with it, and I'm assuming it must have some value for the upsell. But I'm surprised that it pushes. I have a pretty big screen. I'm surprised the CTA is this low on the screen. I would have expected it to be kind of up here, or even clicking on one of these would maybe advance me to the next step, basically.
Totally. The thing that I do like about all these streaming services, and kind of newspapers do this too, and we've seen Substack do it, which is basically you're getting people at the height of their motivation. Like
Yeah.
they want to watch Penguin. And so they've increased this motivation. Now you can actually add a few more barriers because they are so motivated that they're willing to click around. Maybe they're willing to pay more just to get the thing that they want. And so, Substack does this well. I would say the people who do this the worst are Medium, where Medium's asking you, like, do you want to subscribe to a full subscription without that kind of pull for the show or the article?
Yeah.
So streaming services have this benefit of getting you probably while you're laying in bed, eating something to say, I just want to watch it.
And we're focusing on the desktop experience, but the mobile experience becomes a critical element for a lot of this, obviously, because the behavior we generally would see is a lot of people subscribe through desktop or mobile, increasingly mobile, not surprisingly, but most of the viewing time actually happens like on a TV we call them lean back devices. And so there's a bit of like a difference in psychology in terms of their web landing pages tend to be very much focused on getting that initial conversion. But then oftentimes, how do I drive the person to make sure that the app is installed on their television to drive the viewing behavior that happens afterwards?
Yep. Has there been a clever way to get that app installed?
I think generally, you'll see quite a lot of these, but generally it's some combination of once you get through the product, there will often be links for the app stores if you didn't start out there. Additionally, it'll sort of say like available on all these different devices. The other thing you'll see with quite a lot of these different streamers is a lot of their apps come pre-installed on the televisions now. That's by design, right? It's thinking about like, this is very old school, but if you think about old school OEM strategies, this is just a new version of it in a lot of ways, right? Is how do I make sure that I'm present such that when a person turns on their new, I literally got that TV like 2 weeks ago. When I turn that TV on, all of a sudden, all these apps are already there. And it's a way to say to me, hey, this is the things that you should subscribe for. And also the same with a silly example, but people pay for these buttons, right? Like there's a reason these buttons actually are paid for. It's because that drives behavior where people are like, oh yeah, those are the products that I'm going to use the most commonly. And that's actually part of the marketing strategy for a lot of these companies.
Yeah, I really like that. Like the remote control is in your home.
Exactly.
There's a story around FedEx, which basically FedEx shipped like their envelopes to admins, and admins would have them just like sitting on the desk. And this was kind of like free advertising for FedEx. Interesting to think the remote control is actually free advertising across the board for anyone who has a TV. I love that.
It's both free advertising and it's a free action. It's a free CTA if you think about it, right? Like it's advertising with a CTA built into it because it's literally a button on a remote.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's log in. So transparently, I actually don't have Max, but Barron does, and so we are going to see what Barron watches. And we'll talk about the choice architecture and the setup of this page. Great. Okay,
I was
gonna say, what do you notice first when you're looking at this homepage?
What I was going to say is I think probably a lot of people log in to any one of these services and they say these all seem very similar. When you see Netflix versus Max versus Hulu, there's a lot of similarity in terms of the content that's shown. A lot of the difference comes from how intelligent the backend system is and other elements. What I see here when I first log in is hero content at the top. Potentially it's tailored per user. However, if I'm looking at it, I think they're actually really focusing right now on content that is probably like their best content in these hero images up near the top. And that's pretty typical because oftentimes these take a little bit more editorial time. You have to generate the images, think through the copy, but they're intended to help you find something that you're going to want to watch. What you'll often see is the continue watching row is always near the top, usually not the top row though. And the reason for that is continue watching is probably the most interacted with row here. People will search for it. And in the process of searching for it, there's a bit of a theory that if you can show them other content they might be interested in with their next show, that might become the next thing that gets added to the continue watching. So that's why they have the recommended for you row, I assume, listed above continue watching. The idea being, hey, these are shows that we know are popular, that we think you'll like based on previous behavior. And if you click into one, all of a sudden that starts to populate your continue watching row, and it adds more value for that.
Yep.
Just one other tiny. Oh, go ahead.
There's a nice insight that Netflix, I think, found early on, which is the hypothesis could be that like you want to see what your friends are watching or other people like you are watching. But they saw that may work in some cases, but kind of to your point, recommended for you or personalization works better because your past behavior predicts your future behavior. And so if I watch something before, we should use that to actually inform the algorithm versus what other people are watching. If I exercised yesterday predicts if I exercise today. We are creatures of habit. And so the algorithm should actually just appreciate that and look at your past behavior.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing to that study that you were referencing that I recall from it was people are interested in what other people are watching. They don't actually want to reveal what they're watching oftentimes was another big takeaway, because there was a psychological barrier. I mean, I don't mind. You all see that I watch Industry and Mad Max. That's fine. But for a lot of people, they're like, I don't necessarily want my friends to know all of the content I'm watching unless I share it with them directly, which I think is another interesting learning. But it goes back to kind of your point that based on yourself is a lot more interesting than based on others. It doesn't mean that these rows don't do well, though. Like rows like this still are very helpful because I think people do like that external validation that a lot of other people like what they like. There is still value to those kinds of rows too.
Totally. And you made the point that basically the top two rows and kind of the top half of the page are like the two big things, which is new. They have these heuristics that say new episode or, exactly. Just released, and then popular, which are heuristics that people like. We like things that are recent and we like things that other people are doing. And obviously we like them more if we, have some affinity to them already.
Yeah, exactly. And as you go down the page, you're seeing essentially it's like the page, I'd say, kind of turns into a pyramid or a tree. At the top is what I think they think is like hero content, their best content that's they're hoping will grab you. However, if none of that does grab you, as you scroll down, you start to see a much wider variety. You start to see potentially live things that you might want to watch now or later in the day. You start to see the top 10s for both series and movies. And then you also start to see, okay, it's October, Halloween content is going to do well, different things like that. And then as you really scroll to the bottom, it becomes a very wide assortment of all of the different types of content that they have, with a goal of if they can just get you hooked on the next series, the next movie, that's what's going to keep you subscribing and sticky within the context of these different products. They want you to be watching. If you're watching, you generally will not churn out of these products.
Yeah, I've heard that Netflix has a goal to get you watching something within 7 seconds. And so it's probably actually a user aligned goal because no one really likes to scroll too much. You actually do want to like just start. We actually get the question a lot of like, how much choice is too much choice? And when you look at this, I think people would think, oh, wow, this is a lot of choice. But actually the clever thing they have done is one, do these heuristics, new and recommended, and then two, categories. So you're not actually choosing between all of these, you're choosing about which category to start with. And then after you choose a category, you're choosing within the category. And then within the category, they give you the heuristics. So this is kind of a nice master class lesson in choice architecture that it is a lot of choice, but by making it easier for people, you can actually kind of make it feel a little better.
Yeah, 100%. And I think their hope is that up near the top, they're trying to keep it tight with like the most popular choices, to your point. And they only really expose the full breadth of the catalog as you go down. But even as they expose it, usually these rows, like criminal action from page to screen, these kinds of things, most of these rows are also tailored based upon behavior. So we had, some set of 20 or 30 thematic types of rows that would be fed by machine learning, but that had specific characteristics around them. So if you know that I love industry and shows about Wall Street, probably there's going to be a row called like financial thrillers or something like that down there. And it'll be all the shows, all the movies that are within that context. And that's also based on previous behavior, but you can go deep within a specific type of content. And so it gives you choice, but it also gives you directed choice, I would argue.
Totally. It's almost like Max could know you better than you know yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. Any final thoughts as we wrap up? Anything about their strategy, their choice architecture, things that you would do differently?
No, I mean, I think they've done a really good job. They have a nice collection of different content here, trying to drive you to just keep watching things. I think most of my feedback is actually a little bit more in the sign-up experience from before around thinking through A/B tests and CTAs. But I do think once you get into the experience, they're doing a good job of exposing a lot of content to try to keep you engaged over time.
Yep. And I think as kind of these streaming wars continue, it's likely kind of that upfront motion will be more and more important of like, is it a good deal? Do you have the titles? Can you retain me after the series ends? And then this is kind of like, there is a recipe to get people to watch a show, and people are kind of benchmarking each other and maybe finding the top thing.
Yeah. And to your point, as these become bundles, you start to have some of the psychology of what used to be the cable bundle. The biggest difference being the barriers to cancellation. We don't have to get into that, but the barriers to cancellation are way down. So it's interesting how they will balance that psychology. Whereas historically, like, inaction is a reason people wouldn't cancel. Now they have to keep you constantly entertained. Otherwise, that barrier to cancellation is so much lower now that becomes a critical element to how you're running these kinds of businesses.
Yeah, I would say maybe we'll end with this. Is I think the key to this cancellation thing is other people watching. So if you can't really cancel if your spouse is watching without a deep conversation, and so there could be something to bringing more people on and kind of creating that lock-in right up front.
Absolutely.
Cool. Okay, well, that's kind of what I did. I brought Barron on, and now we did this teardown, tag teamed it, family plan. Okay, until next time.